We're going to do only AAA for worst games. But there is an indie game that made it to my top 5 best. Who knows what that could be? We'll have to wait till I talk about the best games. Let's see what all came out this year. I feel like I already know what my worst games are going to be, but let's double check. Gungrave Gore. That didn't come out this year. This came out last year, but I'm guessing it's just for this platform, for the Switch. Why would they even bother? What was the point? This game made top 5 worst games of the year for me last year, didn't it? I'm pretty sure I put it on there. This game was awful. Even more embarrassingly, they paid a few streamers to play it, and they had to fake that it was even somewhat fun. Hey, Last of Us Part 2 remastered. That came out in January. It's also coming out again next year. No stinkers in January. Not that I played there. Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash is 100% going on my top 5 worst of the year. This game is almost unplayable garbage. A complete waste of the IP. Anime games always fall into one of 2 categories. Lazy arena fighter cash grab, or lazy... Visual novel's not the right word for it, but you know what game I'm talking about. Usually it's just the throwaway arena fighters, though. Also, they've been starting to fall into another camp with like gacha. They have like gacha elements, like that solo leveling one. I'm pretty sure is a gacha game. But yeah, this game sucks. There's not a single redeeming thing about it. They couldn't even be bothered to put cutscenes in the game. They just took still images from the show. That's how lazy it was. And this poor guy had to make a whole fucking cutscene compilation.
Well, even if he is a vassal, Jujutsu regulations demand Itadori be executed. However,
it's just completely worthless.
A request from a precious
I still can't believe you beat this game on stream. I said I'd do it, and I did it. Also, it was only like 4 hours. It wasn't really much. Did I beat it? I actually beat this game? I don't even remember doing that. You sure? I'm about to be on Act 2 of Cruel, Matt. I've been grinding the shit out of PoE, I love it. Skull and Bones! The first quadruple A game! Ubisoft! Yeah! What a good year for Ubisoft. I can't believe its stock price is so cheap. Worth about as much as a piece of bubblegum. Makes no sense with games like this. They invented the quadruple A gaming space with Skull and Bones. How's it doing, by the way? Is it the biggest game in the world? I just typed in Skull Bones. Why Skull and Bones failed? Well, it's a little early to throw in the towel. Is boarding still a cutscene?
We've streamlined the onboarding.
Life is too short to be spent on this game. Not even the few Skull and Boners are excited about it. Best quality of life improvement comes from avoiding this dumpster fire. We want large ships boarding, being able to join other players' ships, and use weapons, swordplay, and guns. You telling me none of this is there? I know boarding's not there, it just plays a cutscene, which is mind-boggling. But what do I know about quadruple A gaming? This dragon's cool, though. Fighting a dragon on your ship, that could be fun. If it was in anything that wasn't Skull and Bones. I'll keep this up here as a potential top 5 candidate, but I feel like there were worse games than Skull and Bones this year. Oh, the Battlefront Classic Collection. This was broken when it came out. Trying to play that on launch was miserable. That game just didn't work. Probably not going to be my top 5 worst. But it is very impressive they took like a 20-year-old game and still couldn't make the multiplayer work. Like, how do you take a game that was totally functional 20 years ago and fail to make it functional now in the modern age? What a blunder. Where was Suicide Squad? Was it in February? I thought it was in March. I thought it was in the right month. Oh, here it is. You're right. I did miss it. It slipped right under my radar. Absolutely going to be on my top 5 worst games of the year. A complete slog. Oh, and they did just announce their final season. Well, I think it's season 4. This will be the last one. And it's only fitting that they go out with such a whimper.
What can I tell you about Deathstroke the Terminator that you...
pretty epic scene.
What? You listened to his speeches?
See, that's pretty cool. Brainiac killed. But not really. The game will never actually finish this story, because it wasn't good enough to last long. It's just not a good game. There really was so little to like about it. I think there was, like, maybe a little potential with some of the gameplay elements they introduced, but the game itself as a package was just fucking miserable. And it had the cardinal sin of having so many escort missions with your little vehicle. Ugh, what a chore. What a chore. Movement on some characters is so good. Yeah, some of the movement options I think were really creative. And it did feel good and pretty fluid to move around the world. But there'd be no reason to move around the world because there was nothing in it that was worth looking for. Or doing. Man, I fucking hated that game. Probably going to go on the top 5 worst of the year. Plus, even if we're looking at it from like a financial standpoint when it comes to flops, this game cost Warner Bros. About $200 million. So that's pretty impressive. Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, jeepers. Zoinks. This is still, to date, the only game I have ever played that would not work. When this game launched, I couldn't play it no matter what I tried to do. I still haven't played it because they released the game and it was... I couldn't play it. I tried streaming it. I tried even off-stream. Didn't work. Never went back. Disaster. Disaster. It's still good, bro. Yeah, but they released the game that doesn't function. That's not really like a whoopsie-daisy. That's up there with like Cyberpunk's release. But I was able to play Cyberpunk on release. I couldn't play this. Launched a non-functioning game with a fourth of the content of the original. Yeah, I wouldn't even be able to tell you. I loved the first game. I thought the first game was amazing. Whoa, El Shaddai Ascension of the Metatron. They brought that to the Switch? I did not know that game was popular enough for that port. This was a really cool game. Doubt it holds up well, but this game had a really nice style to it. This was back in the 360 era. Well, I figured El Shaddai was only going to be the game. Clearly it was more than that.
To save humanity.
That does not look how I remembered it in my head. Yeah, maybe there's a chance it just doesn't hold up all that well, you know what I mean? It was cool for its time, though, I'll tell you that much. See, this guy even made a whole video on it. Greatest game with the worst title ever. It's a good game. It was a good game. It was cool. Why are they still trying to port Biomutant elsewhere? Just let it die. It was terrible. Just let it stay in the ground. X-Defiant! Let's go! R.I.P. Didn't last super long, but you were there for a little bit. That's tough, that's tough. Concord! There she is. The biggest financial flop in entertainment history. A dead-on-arrival game. You all know how fucking terrible this game was. Like, the game itself was just like your throwaway generic hero shooter. Like, the game, like it worked, it just wasn't fun. It was also way too slow. But it's just, conceptually, it should have never even been released. This should have just stayed an idea that they never actually pulled the trigger on. Charging $40 for a game that's just worse than all of the free alternatives is a bafflingly delusional decision. And also apparently cost $400 million. Thought it was the next fucking Star Wars. Star Wars Outlaws. I really didn't like this game at all, but I stopped playing it after like 3 or 4 hours. It was just so mind-numbingly boring. I feel like that should earn a place on the top 5 worst. There was nothing I liked about it. I didn't get into the story. The stealth gameplay felt like out of 2005 era. Luckily, they did make a change where now, if you get spotted during stealth, it doesn't insta-end the mission, which should have just been the default setting. There's just truly nothing I liked about Star Wars Outlaws. I heard the Until Dawn remake was worthless, so I didn't play that either. Man, you know what I did this year? I avoided a lot of the worst games. I really kind of only played the good ones, huh? It's just starting to dawn on me. I kind of only played the heaters. Outside of, like, some of the shitty games through Steam new releases. I never played Slitterhead. It looked like it'd be a fun bad game, but everyone said it was just, like, really boring bad, so I didn't play it. See, like, damn. I really did avoid, like, all of the shitties. Yeah. That's all. Oh, wow. So it's between these 6, and I think it's kind of easy with these 6. All those Ubisoft games. Ubisoft's only in here twice. Poopysoft only had Outlaws and Skull and Bones up here for me. Alright, let's put them in order. And who's getting cut? I feel like Dragon's Dogma has to get cut because I couldn't play it. I literally couldn't play it, but I feel like that should also be a sign of just how bad the game was, that it didn't work on launch. Man, this one feels dirty since I quit 4 hours in because I just hated it. But you know what? That should be a strong indicator that it was one of my least favorite games of the year. I'll put Star Wars Outlaw at 5. No, maybe Skull and Bones at 5. This is another game I didn't play much of because it was just trash. Oh, this is so tough. You know, we'll do 5 and 4 to Skull and Bones and Star Wars Outlaws. Very interchangeable. Ubisoft, they can take the bottom here, and you can just switch them around however you want. The top 3 is where it actually gets competitive. Star Wars absolutely better than Skull and Bones. It's not even close. I'm not gonna fight you on it. I don't care. I didn't like either one. I think they're both just not good. Like I said, these are fully interchangeable with 5 and 4. It doesn't bother me. But this is where I'm actually going to start fighting people on, because I think Suicide Squad will be number 3. I think this will be number 3. And I really think, in a shock to pretty much everyone, I'm going to go Concord at 2, Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash at 1. And that's because, as I said, Concord as a game was just like the most serviceable, generic, formulaic throwaway hero shooter, but it played. It was a game you could play. Jujutsu Kaisen, there was nothing to play. Like, there was nothing there. Actually nothing there at all. This is the biggest financial flop in entertainment history, but setting aside the flopperooski of it, the game itself was better than Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash. But you can't even play Concord now. Yeah, but you also can't even play Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash either, because the Lord himself will stop you from playing it, I would imagine, if there's any fucking justice in the world. So we can't look at it that way either. Also, Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash is $60. Is it still $60? Also, wasn't it $50? Let me see. Oh, it's on sale right now. That's big. Get your credit cards ready. Nope, still $60. You are correct. Another point into my bucket for why it's the worst game of the year. Reverse curse price tag. Yep, pretty much. I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm satisfied with that top 5. Man, I did not play a lot of the stinkiest. Well, I mean, I played the stinkiest, but I didn't play some of, like, the more mid-tier stinky. I went straight to Mephitis. I didn't dabble in, like, revolting. Yeah, I need to start playing more of, like, the mid-tier bad games. I'll start doing that again, I guess. Looking at that list, there are a couple bad games on there that I do regret not playing. 2025 New Year's resolution, I'm playing more of these, like, mid-tier games that I know are just going to be bad. I just really don't like to be bored with games anymore. Like, I'm not going to push through, like, a Star Wars Outlaws, because it's bad and I'm bored by it. So I'm not going to fucking force myself to finish it. Same way I wouldn't force myself to finish, like, some of these other ones that I knew weren't going to be good, like Slitterhead, right? But 2025, I'll at least try and push through. 2023 has to be one of the goofiest years in gaming history. We experienced some extreme highs and some extreme lows, blessed with some masterpieces like Baldur's Gate 3 or Tears of the Kingdom, and then also cursed with some of the most revolting trash that has ever been farted out into the gaming ecosystem. There were a ton of super stinkers this year. Like, the hits were hitting, but the shits, they were shitting. It is crazy how we had such a huge amount of incredible games and extremely bad ones. Like, some of the worst games in recent memory came out this year, and sometimes within a month of each other. Choosing just 5 games for this list was actually pretty difficult because there were so many that could have broken into the top 5. But using the scientific method, I was able to break it down here to the factually, objectively correct take for what are the worst 5 games of 2023. So this is the end of the year pseudo Moisties awards ceremony. I'll briefly explain why it's not an official Moisties production. It's because I didn't moist meter any of these games. I only finished one of them on this list because the others were just impossible for a human being to endure. I felt like I suffered the same agony as Dante when he went to hell. So I just didn't moist meter them. And now let's get in there. At number 5, we have Redfall. In a surprise to nobody, Redfall makes this list. This is an unforgettable stain on Arcane. Arcane is a great developer, they have a solid resume, so this game obviously had a lot of hype before it came out, which was immediately thrown down the tubes when it was revealed that the game wouldn't even run at 60 FPS on the Xbox, and this was supposed to be one of their big Xbox exclusives of the year, so they put on the clown makeup for that one and really played the fool. It completely took all of the momentum out of the title's launch and immediately just became a bit of a joke. The game released and it was worse than anyone could have imagined. Unfun, half-baked, the world is completely empty, filled to the brim with glitches out the wazoo. The AI is brain dead even at the highest difficulty. It just offers nothing even remotely fun. There is no redeeming qualities for Redfall unless you're looking at something to point and laugh at, but even that novelty wears off like 2 or 3 hours into it, then it just becomes a tedious chore for everything. They couldn't even be bothered to put real cutscenes in the game, they just have still images that they pan a camera around. It's so lazy and pathetic, really. It was so bad that Phil Spencer himself even name-dropped it when he was talking about a bit of their flops this year and how they believed that Xbox wasn't really doing enough to even be considered a competitor in the console wars, which, for some reason, when I bring that up, some, like, Xbox enthusiasts tell me I'm lying. He literally went on record and said this. You can watch it for yourself or read it for yourself. Like, it's all right there at your fingertips. Just go on Google, go to this source, that source, any source, really. Like, he himself mentioned that Xbox wasn't doing enough this year, and I do agree. And Redfall was one of the things that he pointed out as being a blemish. Now, moving on to number 4, I think this one's going to have a few of you with your jaw on the floor for the placement on this one. No one's going to be surprised it's here, but I think you will be shocked to learn that number 4 goes to Gollum. Lord of the Rings Gollum game. This was by most considered to be the worst game of the year. And when I posted my video on it, I called it worst game of the year so far. I had the foresight to predict that it might actually get worse than Gollum, and by golly, I tell you, I swear with my hand on a stack of Bibles, somehow it did. Gollum is number 4 for the worst game of the year. That's how you know this year was special, because any other year this would have been easily number 1. So, what makes Gollum so shitty? Just look at it. It's a stealth game and a platformer, but none of the mechanics work well. It is extraordinarily boring. This is the only game on the list I was actually able to finish, though, because it became something like a challenge for me. Like, this was my display of strength, my Gordian knot that I needed to cut, beating this game. So I pushed through all like 5 or 6 miserable hours of this experience and beat it, just to say that I'm one of the few that did. So I got my $50 worth out of this one, I tell you what. But this game was so bad that it actually led to the studio being shut down for it, because not only did it not sell well, but the reception was so overwhelmingly negative that they viewed it as, I guess, embarrassing or shameful, and they just closed the doors on the studio, which is actually extremely sad, because the studio makes good games outside of Gollum. The games that they're known for making are not stealth platformers like Gollum was. That was their first attempt at doing it, and they just didn't know how to do it correctly, so it led to this trash. But I was still upset to learn that the studio was closed in response to this game. Now, Gollum is horrible. And you're probably scratching your head, what could be worse than Gollum? Well, turn your attention to number 3 on this list, because we got a real heater. We've got Rise of Kong. Yes, this puppy's coming from the genius visionaries, the Imagineers over at Game Mill, an infamous studio known for producing absolute abominations. And they looked at the catalog of games that came out this year. They said, you know what? We've got Redfall, we've got Gollum, but we can do worse. So they did. They pooped Kong out here within the last 3 months of the year and said, hey, this is what we've got, how do you feel about it? And everyone groaned all at the same time. This is like a $40 to $50 game, and it plays and looks like something a student in university could have thrown together in 48 hours while overdosing on Xanax. It is absolutely atrocious in every measurable category. There isn't a single redeeming feature of this game, and the most insulting thing is that, once again, a Game Mill classic, it uses a beloved IP, Kong, and ruins it. It delivers a terrible game that nobody in the world, I imagine, can find a single positive thing about, which is basically Game Mill's slogan at this point for the games they produce. Which brings us to our super surprise special. We've got a tie for third place, actually, and it's another Game Mill game. It's The Walking Dead Destinies. This puppy came out 3 weeks ago. They said, you know what? We're not done shoveling shit in your mouth. Open wide, gamers. Here's our ass, and enjoy what comes out. And boy, howdy, did I not enjoy it at all. This game is, again, completely miserable, and again, takes a very popular IP and runs it into the ground. Even though the show itself kind of ran itself into the ground a little bit, but that's a topic for a different day. The Walking Dead Destinies does nothing right, per usual. Takes a page out of Redfall's playbook here with the cutscenes, where it's just slideshows. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. The gameplay, if you can even call it that, is beyond sluggish and seems like it's just there to waste your time so that way you can't get a refund after 2 hours on Steam. It is incomprehensible how Game Mill keeps getting away with this. I truly believe in the conspiracy that they must have blackmail on all of these major franchises and just strong-arm them into letting them use their IP to make this shovelware throwaway garbage. There is no way these games make any money for them, because I'm pretty sure I'm the only person in the world that actually buys these bitches. Nobody buys them. The trailers look horrible. Like, there's no one that ever actually falls for this, except for maybe, like, elderly grandparents that buy these games for their children not knowing gaming or something, so accidentally purchasing this. Like, I just don't see their business model. There's no way they're making money. This has to be a money laundering scheme or something. I don't get it, but yeah. I couldn't decide which Game Mill game was worse there, so I let them duke it out and share the stage together at the number 3 for worst of the year. And that brings us to number 2. We have an actual scam game, The Day Before. I had covered this game about a year ago when everyone was talking about how, like, all the gameplay trailers and shit are fake. The game's not real, it's never coming out. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, and this bad boy actually comes out, and it is nothing like the trailers led people to believe. It was a completely different game, and it was nearly unplayable. There was nothing in there that even shared the same DNA as what they were showing throughout the last year or so. From the most wishlisted game on Steam under a false pretense to one of the most universally hated games when it dropped. And then 4 days later, the studio behind it announced they were shutting their doors. They immediately just called it quits, gave up. They had their cake, they ate it too, they made their influx of cash off this and then said, alright, we're sailing off into the sunset, dropping this broken pile of garbage, this dog shit on everyone's doorstep. And for the few fans that were still holding on to the hope that maybe they'd get a game that's decent, you know, they'd waited so long for The Day Before, that was immediately ruined. And they never even bothered to try and fix it. Now, of course, I think everyone did get refunds for this. I think Steam themselves even stepped in and issued refunds. So at least people got their money back. But what a disaster of a game. It's actually disrespectful to even call this a game, because this really seemed like they panicked just to produce something to avoid a potential lawsuit. That's my theory on it, at least. Because this never even tried. Like, for a zombie game, the most zombies I ever saw on the map at any given time was 4. It was also nearly impossible to run into any other players. It also ended up being a fucking extraction shooter, which is not at all what they advertised in the slightest. So I don't even know if I can really call this a game. It was just legitimately a fucking scam, which is why it's got the comfortable number 2 spot here. But you know what's got the number 1 spot for the worst game of the year? Well, none other than another Game Mill production. Of the 6 worst games I could think of this year, 3 of them belong to Game Mill. That is a historical achievement. Usually a studio will have 1, maybe 2 bad games in a year, at most. It's unheard of to have 3. And in the span of about 4 months, I believe, is when all of them came out. Like, round of applause, Game Mill. You really outshit yourself for this one. This was incredible. The number 1 worst game of the year is Avatar: Quest for Balance. I think it is Game Mill's worst game since Big Rigs Over the Road Racing. Many of you don't know this, but that was a Game Mill game. Often considered the worst game ever produced in the history of gaming. That was Game Mill. That's got their fucking stamped seal of quality. But Avatar: Quest for Balance is closely behind it. Not only is the gameplay the most monotonous gameplay imaginable, I'm almost 100% certain they must have lifted this from the Nickelodeon website from back in the day or something and like poorly copy and pasted it here and upgraded the graphics. And upgraded I'm using really generously here because it looks like shit. Everything about it sucks. But what hurts the most is that it takes, again, a beloved IP and produces the worst imaginable game for it. I love Avatar, and to see Game Mill get their grubby little paws on it and produce this is nothing shy of an insult and them spitting in my face and any other face of fans. And the worst part is, I know some kids got this game as a present for their birthday or for the holidays or something because Avatar's on it in the name, and it's $50. They're charging $50 for this trash. I think Avatar: Quest for Balance very narrowly squeaks out the number 1 spot over Day Before. Day Before is a scam, like an actual scam game, and Avatar is arguably a scam game because it is so fucking lazy and trash that it's clear this was just made to get a couple of quick sales from confused customers that didn't know anything about it aside from the IP's name on the box. It is so impressive how horrible Game Mill is. And I'm pretty sure they do it on purpose. You can't accidentally make games this bad. Like I said on stream every time I play a Game Mill game, it is immediately apparent that they are not using like assets that you'd buy on the marketplace for the engines they use. Because if they did, their games would instantly look better. They are going out of their way to make their games look and play worse than if you had just purchased some cheap assets to throw in there. Like, it's incomprehensible to me. What a year Game Mill had. What a fucking year. Oh, and I forgot to mention, in Avatar: Quest for Balance, half of the gameplay, like it's divided up, you'll do like some of the worst puzzles ever, then some of the worst combat ever, and then you go into Subway Surfers. They actually just have Subway Surfers. That's how shameless this game is. It's horrible. I think it deserves the number 1 spot for worst game of 2023. Unfortunately, I don't have a trophy for you, Game Mill, so there's nothing for you to collect, but if you want to celebrate this impressive feat, this accomplishment, if you want to celebrate it on your socials, I can whip you up a graphic or something. It'll say your winner, which is of course a throwback and homage to Big Rigs Over the Road Racing, and then it can have your 3 horrible games that made this list for the worst of the year. Really impressive stuff. That's about it. See ya.
This episode of Moist Meter brought to you by Godslap Issue 2. Go to godslapbook.com to order your copy now.
Initiating moisture.
Happy New Year! Welcome back to the Moisties. Today we're looking at the 5 worst games of 2022. Some real big stinkers that just make you go, P.U., that's smelly. And 2022 gave us some very impressive bad games. So let's kick it off. At number 5, we have Dark Pictures Anthology, Devil in Me. This one actually hits close to home. This one actually really hurts my soul, because this is a tradition on my streams to play through all the Dark Pictures games with Jackson. We do it every time there's a new release. It's become just a yearly tradition, and it's always fun. The games are never the best games ever made or anything like that, but they're always enjoyable. They have campiness, goofiness, self-awareness, just a really enjoyable experience. But not this time. It seems like the Grinch stole more than Christmas this year. They stole all of the talent from the development team because they released a completely broken and borderline unplayable co-op experience. This game made Pokemon Scarlet and Violet look like a polished $60 masterpiece. I don't know what went wrong. It's the same engine, everything. They didn't like reinvent the genre or change anything. They just completely fumbled it super hard. There's moments in this game where we got soft locked, I think it was 4 times in total, where we couldn't progress at all and had to hard restart the game. Literally close out of the game, reopen it, and then lose all of that progress and getting back. There's also times where the camera would lock up in a position where you couldn't move it anymore, so then you'd have to have like this isometric camera view, which is a bug by the way, and you couldn't actually see any of the interactables you were supposed to touch, so you couldn't progress because of that, which again required a hard restart in order to fix it. Now apparently these were co-op only problems and there was actually not as many bugs and glitches in a solo experience, but it's still inexcusable because these games are kind of catered to being a 2-player experience. You both go off on your own paths that always converge and you work together, and it's just like watching a movie together, but you get to influence it to a certain degree. I love the Dark Pictures anthology. I think it's a great series of games, but they really fucked it up with Devil in Me. And it's a shame because I actually think it's their most interesting setting yet. Going through H.H. Holmes stuff, the first serial killer, and like the saw traps almost, like there's just so much that was interesting. The setup was great and the narrative was fun too, but it couldn't really be played effectively with Jackson and I. It didn't function half the time, which led to a massive headache because then you'd have to go back and like reset all the progress after the hard restart. It was just a remarkably frustrating disappointment. Now moving on to number 4, we have Saints Row. Man, what can be said about Saints Row that hasn't already been said about a festering pile of dog shit on the sidewalk? There is almost nothing to like about this game unless you like absolutely cringe dialogue that never relents and it just never stops coming. It is miserable both to listen to and to play. The gameplay feels incredibly dated. I felt like I was playing something out of 2008, and everything around it is just a tedious chore. Every mission is cookie cutter. There's nothing fun about it. The cutscenes were kind of enjoyable from time to time because they weren't afraid to be over the top with their action moments, but there's so few of those, and most of the cutscenes are just the characters talking at each other, talking about student loan debt and shit like that, and fuck this, oh, that's a lot of poop shit. Like, it's a bad experience all across the board. If you're looking for a good story, you won't find it. If you're looking for gameplay, you certainly won't find it. And the shtick of being carefree and goofy wears off almost immediately. Plus, it doesn't even do what Saints Row is known for, which is getting like really zany with weaponry and stuff. There's no dildo bats in this game like I was expecting. There's nothing like necessarily even crude in the game anymore. It's all just like what I feel deviant art would have found to be somewhat edgy 10 years ago, or like Tumblr maybe. It's just completely missing the mark. I don't know what happened here. Like, I would expect the gameplay to not be amazing. I don't think Saints Row's ever had stellar gameplay, but it was carried by the freedom to do silly stuff. The unapologetic freedom to be wacky. That's not here. Your options for doing silly things are severely limited. There's not a lot of it. It's just a very boring, bland, not fun experience. At number 3, we have Diablo Immortal. You all have phones, don't you? Good, because we're gonna squeeze every last dollar we can out of your saved credit card information on that phone. The greediest monetization model of any game I have ever seen in my life. I didn't actually get into the game. I did give it a bit of a whirl just to see how truly awful the greed was. But I've heard the game itself wasn't bad. It's just how it was monetized and how the monetization actually affected the game going forward. But even if the core gameplay was fine, it can't be forgiven just how greedy this shit was. Plus, it's pretty clear the main goal with Diablo Immortal was to be a lucrative financial project that only strives to make as much money as it can from the customer, squeeze as many doubloons out of each individual player as they could, as opposed to making a good game that they could also make money on. It was only about printing money, farming customers, and then a game tacked on to that idea. I and many others have already made videos breaking down just how bad Diablo Immortal's monetization was, so I'm not going to be getting too deep into the weeds of it here. I don't know if it's changed now, but it also doesn't matter. because it's not something that can be overlooked with the state that it shipped in. It was very clearly just exploiting customers. That shit was more exploitative than like a secret crypto miner installed onto a PC after downloading a Steam game. It was just so unethical. It would incentivize heavily and pretty much like push players as hard as possible to spend money on the game constantly. You could spend tens of thousands of dollars on that game and still not even be at the highest level of pay to win that it offered. It was so fucked up. Just an absolutely blatant greed machine. So that's why Diablo Immortal's here. And now for the runner-up for the worst game of the year. In second place for bad games, it's Gungrave Gore taking home the silver. This is a game I don't think many of you have played or ever heard of, but I tried it and wow, this was something special. Playing this game felt like playing the idea of a game back in 1985. Like, it had the most basic gameplay elements where it's like pressing one button over and over and over and over again and nothing else. And then like occasionally you do other buttons, but you didn't need to. It's just a fucking awful game. It had a really cool intro cutscene. It has a really cool style, and they have like a full like animation thing in the beginning that's really great. But then after that, they clearly blew their load there. The entire budget went to the first 15 minutes of visuals and animation. After that, it falls so flat. Everything is so bad. But obviously the biggest problem is how bad the gameplay is. I'm not kidding. You just press one button. Or you can just press one button over and over again. There's like deflection mechanics, but you don't really need them. It doesn't really matter. You build up a combo by just breaking things through pressing one button. You do have like abilities, but they kind of fucking suck. You're still better off just pressing the one button, the shoot button, and nothing else. The game looks like it should be a hack and slash with combos, but there's no combos. Your melee is like 3 attacks, I think. You just do 3 attacks. 1, 2, 3. That's it, forever. And then everything else is just shooting. Normal shooting. Not interesting shooting. Auto lock on kind of shooting. It's bad. Like, I can't stress enough. It makes Saints Row gameplay look innovative. That's how bad Gungrave Gore's gameplay is. Alright, so after hearing all that, you're probably wondering what could possibly be worse than Gungrave Gore. You naive fool. It seems you haven't heard of the biggest flop since The Culling 2. It came out this year by none other than Platinum Games, one of my personal favorite developers, a developer whose name always meant highest quality production until very recently, unfortunately. They released a game that had an all-time peak of 1,166 players. This is for a big budget release. This is not some random obscure indie game. This is a Platinum Games game, which is a very prestigious studio, and it only ever had 1,100 players. And within a week was down to less than 10. It was a live service game, which doesn't bode well these days. A lot of live service games are just doomed for failure, just literally dead on arrival, buried 6 feet deep by the time they release. And it's a little game called Babylon's Fall. This is the worst game of 2022 by far. It is a colossal failure on every possible front. It fails as a live service game, and it fails in every department of what makes a video game enjoyable. Even just from its visuals, everything is very clearly half-baked and unfinished. They put a fucking filter on the game, like an actual Snapchat filter for like effects. So like they'll have a like ink blots or whatever in order to make it look stylistic, but it's clearly there just because they were too lazy to program things like rain or whatever. So they just have little fucking filters throughout the game, and it is an eyesore. It is disorienting. It feels like when you play this game that you're on the verge of passing out. Like, it feels like your vision is narrowing and getting blurry just from looking at the screen when you're playing Babylon's Fall. But you're never playing Babylon's Fall to begin with. No one ever did. When this game came out, I couldn't play with anyone except friends who also were playing it as a joke to see how bad it was. There was never a community for this game, and for good reason. It wasn't just a game that flew under the radar but was okay, like passable. It was a game that flew under the radar that sucked fuck. It was terrible. Absolutely horrible. Every quest, every mission was just the same thing over and over and over again. Repeated ad nauseum. There was no interesting content. It was just the same reused, recycled content, dungeons, whatever, all of it used a million times, and it just sucked. It was so bad. I'm having a hard time finding enough descriptive words to explain the experience of playing Babylon's Fall. Like, words pale to the feeling of playing something so atrocious. It was so easy to choose the worst game of the year because there is an objectively correct answer. It's Babylon's Fall. There is no game that came out this year, AAA or indie, that is as bad or as big of a failure as Babylon's Fall. So that concludes the top 5 worst games of 2022 Moisties. That's about it. Godslap is a comic book series we've been working on for a couple years now. It's a hyper-violent, over-the-top sci-fi story about the beauty and destruction that slaps can cause. Issue 2 is out right now. It'd make a wonderful Christmas gift, so make sure to check it out at godslapbook.com. Right now we also have 3 variant covers that are in stock, but the second those sell out, those variant covers will never be restocked, so definitely make sure to pick up a copy today. For the last few years, I've done something called the Moisties, which is a beloved yearly event that happens right before New Year's, and I would argue for a lot of people it's more important than the New Year's ball drop, and it's where Jackson and I discuss the 5 best and worst movies and games that came out for that year. And a lot of you noticed we didn't do them for 2021, which ruined a lot of people's holidays. When I've been streaming, I've been constantly being asked, where are the Moisties? Are they coming? What's going on? Did the fucking Grinch come through and steal the Moisties? Please, tell us what's happening. So I figured I'd give an explanation for the absence of the 2021 Moisties. It's not a really deep story, it's just neither Jackson nor I felt a lot came out last year. Like, it was a pretty dry year all around. So we just didn't do it. It's not anything more in-depth than that. There's no Krampus. We didn't go full Ebenezer Scrooge or anything with Bah Humbug or canceling the Moisties or anything. It really was just like a lack of shit that came out in 2021. But I decided I'll go ahead and hop in the Crucible solo, get in the Thunderdome myself, and just do a 5 best and worst games and movies myself. So let's kick this shit off with the 5 worst games of 2021. Number 5 is comfortably going to Biomutant. This was perhaps one of the most boring games I've ever had the misfortune of playing. It was around like 8 or 9 hours or some shit. I don't remember now. It's like a fucking fever dream. It was so excruciatingly tedious. I had more fun in high school during silent reading courses in English. I would have rather listened to an 8 or 9 hour audiobook of someone just reading the terms and service to signing up to iTunes. It was terrible to play through Biomutant. The gameplay was mind-numbing. None of it was fleshed out. They didn't even have like actual impact to the attack, so half the time you wouldn't even know if you hit something. The story was garbage. Every single mission and character you ever engaged with played out exactly the same. Oh, I remember you when you were a kidling. Muma used to love you. Muma was a real big fan of you, so I'm a fan of you. And life is just like some train tracks. You hop on the train and well, that train's going somewhere, and so are you. It was a terrible narrative. Terrible writing, nothing about the game was fun. Most of the game's runtime is spent just going from point A to point B in a really empty, barren wasteland. Luckily, the game is carried by its style because it looks cool, but other than that, there is nothing there. There is no substance whatsoever. Definitely one of the worst games of 2021. There's one more thing that I'd like to mention about Biomutant before moving on to number 4. Just one last little skid mark on the underpants here that I'd like to point out. There's a narrator in this game that never shuts up. Every single step you take in this game will trigger the narrator to say something totally useless and just completely dumb. You'll enter a factory, and for some reason the narrator will come in and say, as he walked in the factory, he remembered what he had for breakfast. Oh, what a good breakfast it was. Delectable Honey Nut Cheerios with a side of Muma's breast milk. It was every second the narrator would come up and say something that had absolutely no bearing on anything and was totally worthless. Just wanted to bring that up. Now let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is going to be the lowest rated game on Steam, eFootball. This is Konami's latest wet fart of a game. eFootball is a PES reskin. I'm not a big soccer, football guy, whatever you want to call it. I don't really care much about the sport, but I did check out eFootball because it was the lowest rated game on Steam. I think it still is, and it sucks. I don't know if it's just because I really don't like sports games, but everything about this game is garbage. Every single component of this game is either broken or just really awful. And I'm not even a sports fan, and I can recognize that. I only have like 2 or 3 hours in the game, but that's all I could stomach before wanting to puke and demand a refund. I totally see why it's one of the lowest rated games on Steam, not just because it's bad on its own right, but apparently the game that it took over was good at one point and now is garbage, and now you're left with eFootball. So I guarantee that's a big slap in the face for football fans. So that's why that's number 4. Coming in at number 3 is the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition, an absolute disaster of a remastered collection. If you can even use the word remaster, that is the absolute wrong title for this shit across the board. Basically, they took Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas, and turned them into mobile games. They used a literal mobile team, a mobile game studio, to remaster these games, and everything about them is a complete step backwards. Somehow the originals, which are almost like 20 years old now, look significantly better than the remastered versions. They took all of the characters from these games and turned them into fucking Duplo figures. They actually just look like cartoony Fortnite skins that you would see on a throwaway shovelware mobile game. It's complete garbage. They also censored some of the older games as well for things that they felt didn't age very well. And they somehow made the games function worse than they originally did. So like in Grand Theft Auto 3, when it rains in the game, they just used a Snapchat filter for rain. Instead of actually like having the rain in the game, it's now just a filter on the screen and it's disorienting. That shit made me actually nauseous. So it is perhaps the worst remaster that has ever come out, but I am extremely excited for Rockstar's next remaster for like fucking Red Dead Redemption, where they're going to pass it off to a studio that only makes Game Boy games. The laziness here was amazing, and somehow they were charging full price for this absolute dog shit collection. It was nothing shy of an insult. So absolutely deserving of number 3 on the spot, on the top 5 here. Coming in at number 2 is one that's pretty painful for me. It's Battlefield 2042. I had a lot of fun playing this game for a while, but I saw all the problems with it and was just kind of assuming they'd eventually be addressed, but now that it's over a month, it seems like the problems aren't getting addressed and are only getting worse. Like, the state of the game is absolutely horrible. I don't have fun with the game anymore, and the game is just in such an inexcusably bad area. The game shouldn't have come out when it did. It wasn't ready, and I guess I was naive enough to think that at this point there'd be steps in the right direction to get the game to where it could be, but it's still not. This is perhaps one of the most broken launches for a multiplayer experience I've seen in quite some time. It is in a laughably horrible, horrible state, and for that, it has to be number 2 on the worst games of 2021. I couldn't recommend this game to anyone right now, because I no longer really see this game getting better. I don't think that the community is there anymore. The community's kind of turned on the dev team, which seems to be pushing a lot of problems to the side, as opposed to addressing them, and it's kind of like the dev team is now vilifying a lot of its user base, and just, it's in a really awful situation, which is a shame because, like I said, I really did enjoy the base game itself. Like, I could see how the game could be a lot of fun if it was just polished more, because I was enjoying it even though it was buggy. But, man, after this length of time, this is no excuse. There's just genuinely no excuse. So that's why it's here. It could have been a fun game. It should have been a great game, but it's just not, and it may never be. So for 2021, Battlefield 2042 takes the 2nd spot for worst games of the year. And number 1 goes to Balan Wonderworld. Balan Wonderworld is perhaps one of the worst platformers I've ever played. I would say one of the worst ever made in general. In terms of awful platformers, there's Bubsy 3D, and then right next to it is Balan Wonderworld. It is so bad, I actually can't even imagine what anyone on that development team was thinking when making this game. It's less of a game and more of an experiment in human spirit. How far can you push someone with boredom and dog shit before their spirit finally breaks? There's that form of torture where they just keep someone awake forever, and that's what this game feels like. You are perpetually dancing on this line between falling asleep but not being able to because you're so insulted by what you're experiencing. Every design element of this game is bafflingly awful. There's nothing that can even be misconstrued as a fun experience to be had with Balan Wonderworld, which is shocking because the team behind it has a history of making good products, and it's published by a major publisher. This isn't some throwaway indie game that you find on Steam new releases for 45 cents. This is a full production here from a talented group, and yet somehow every department of it is bad. Actually awful. The game revolves around getting these costumes, and you switch between 3 of them, and each costume lets you do like one really boring thing. Like one costume will just let you jump. The costumes don't give you cool powers or anything, it gives you things that probably should have just been in the game by default in order to make it fun. The only thing your character can do without a costume is just move around like a fucking tank or a robot. You can't do anything without wearing some kind of furry costume or whatever. So, like, jumping is the big selling point of a costume. Yeehaw. Everything is designed in this game to not be fun. Like, there's quick time events, which are pretty frequent when you want to, like, progress. Well, you don't, like, I guess necessarily need to do all the quick time events perfectly, but quick time events play a big role here. The level design is so stupid and so lame. It really feels like they just flipped Unity stock assets for their levels. It's so weird too, because they have these like K-pop dance numbers which happen like at the end of every world that you get to the end of. So one of the first ones you'll do is with a farmer. So you're just like this little kid and this farmer, and you both hold hands and then you're spinning in a circle and you start busting it. So then, like, you have this anime music playing, like it's an anime intro, and you're just this little kid who's, like, dancing with a farmer in the background. Like, it's so weird. Everything about this game doesn't work. It is probably not only one of the worst games of 2021, but probably one of the worst games that I've played since we've started the Moisties. I can't remember off the top of my head any other game that I felt this awful about. Balan Wonderworld truly was just a really special experience, and it definitely takes the #1 spot for the worst game of 2021. So I know this is a late list, but I figured, you know what, I'll come in here real quick by myself, bang it out, let you all know what I was feeling for the worst games, and I'll do this for best games and then worst movies and best movies as well. I'll probably do those on stream though, so if you want to see that, you can go to twitch.tv/moistcritical. I'll probably be doing it as I post this video, so feel free to come in, and yeah, that's about it. So yeah.
This episode was brought to you by Manscaped.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the 2020 Moisties. Today we're taking a look at the worst games released this year. This is the only council of reviewers that you can trust to give you scientifically accurate data. So the 5 games you see here are objectively, without argument, the worst games that have come out this year. We're not blowing smoke up your ass. We're not pulling a rabbit out of your dick. We're giving you the actual facts. We're bilingual, and the only 2 languages we're fluent in are English and Gamer. So hopping right in at number 5, we have, no surprise, Madden 21. If you're still buying sports video games and expecting innovation, you're a fucking idiot. These games are not changing. They clearly don't need to. They're still breaking sales records every year. But even knowing all that, Madden 21 exceeds what I thought was possible when it comes to blatantly insulting the consumer. This is the company just spitting in the mouth of anyone that buys Madden. Madden 21 is not only the same game for the last 9 years, but it's the same game with more broken things in it. The game has so many fucking bugs. I've only played this game for a handful of hours, and I regretted every hour of it and still desperately tried to get a refund. It is no fun. It's extraordinarily boring. I hadn't played a Madden game since Madden 2012, and I felt like I was just playing Madden 2012 again when I picked this one up. It's terrible. It's so bad that even some of the hardcore, brainwashed Madden enthusiasts that defend these games tooth and nail on Twitter as if their fucking lives depended on it spoke up and said that this one is excessively terrible. They've done a lot of bad things with Madden, and 21, I think, is the example of all the worst things they've done all put together. As it has been for the last 10 years, it is just another money-hungry play from a soulless corporation exploiting sports fans, and for some reason, a lot of the sports gamers will get on their hands and knees and beg for more abuse. I guess they have a humiliation fetish. They're just getting absolutely insulted with these Madden titles, and again, 21 is definitely the worst one I've seen so far. Moving on, we have another game we didn't actually moist meter this year, but kept a close eye on and even experienced firsthand. We have Warcraft 3 Reforged. There is so much to hate about this that I really can't even put it all in the moisties this year, or else the whole video would just be shitting on this game. But if I was to break it down simply, this game is Blizzard's way of taking Warcraft 3 and its fans and sticking their face in Blizzard's dirty asshole. Everything you could imagine being wrong with the remaster is here, including misleading the fans. They were talking about, revamping the cutscenes and this crazy CGI. And then when the game actually came out, that wasn't the case. They didn't have that, at least not to the extent they claimed. They said they wanted to maintain the integrity and the spirit of the original game. Even though they had never publicly stated that, they still had fans believing they were going to get this game where they had, crazy new cutscenes and everything coming in, which wasn't the case. Even on the official Warcraft 3 Reforged website, they were advertising it with a trailer that had these cutscenes in it that didn't exist in the game anymore. So Blizzard doing what it does best and just lying to the fans, among a lot of other problems with the game fundamentally, with bugs and a lot of design choices that make no sense. For example, if you make a custom game in Warcraft 3 Reforged, Blizzard immediately owns your property, just right off the bat, and it's because they missed out on owning Dota, which started out as a mod for their game, so I guess they're still just very upset about that all these years later. There's just a ton of things to hate about this, but the one that really rubs me the wrong way and gives me some chafing on my nutsack is the fact that if you do get Warcraft 3 Reforged, you basically cannot play the original 2002 game. Having Warcraft 3 Reforged anywhere near that overwrites that game, gets rid of all your shit, and you just auto-upgrade to this game. It makes no sense. It basically just deletes 2002's version and forces you on this far less good version. Yes, it is free to go from Classic to Reforged, but you know what else is free? Getting slapped in the face, and it hurts about as much as going from 2002's Classic to this fucking Reforged abomination. So easily deserving of the number 4 slot here, and again, there's plenty of better explanations for everything wrong with Reforged, so I recommend checking those out if you're curious as to why it is so bad. Now moving on to number 3, we have Marvel's Avengers. This game is so boring and so forgettable, I didn't remember this even came out this year. I had to think really hard for this list because actually most of the games that came out this year were super good. It was actually tough to find the best 5 because there were so many to choose from. When it came to the worst games, I really had to sit there and think with a few fingers in my asshole and really try and remember what came out this year, and then, eureka, I remembered. That shitty Avengers game. Now, keep in mind, like I said in the Moist Meter, the game isn't fundamentally broken. It plays exactly like you would expect a 2009 game to play. It all works, but it is so tedious, boring, underwhelming, uninspired, passionless, soulless, dickless. It's terrible. Terrible, again, because it's so boring. There is no elements of this game that makes you want to go back and play it. There's nothing in the game that makes you excited to be playing it. There's items you can pick up that don't even change the appearance of your character. You'll pick up some crazy legendary loot or some shit and you just still look like the same Hulk. But now thanks to your new item, you get a +5 damage when you throw a right hook. So, yippee, yeehaw. It's just not good. It really isn't. And I actually really regret the score I gave this. It should have been far lower. I was beyond bored playing this game, and I believe most people were too, because I think currently it only has 800 active players, if that, on its best possible day. If you get this game for Christmas, you're better off just using it as some kind of doormat, because you're going to get more enjoyment out of just stepping on it than actually playing it. Now, speaking of excessively boring games, we move on to the number 2 spot, Watch Dogs Legion. I think the biggest surprise for all of you listening right now is that this is number 2 and not number 1. I have shit on this game quite a bit, and for good reason. I don't think the game is worth a buy under any circumstance unless you're trying to use this game as a way of giving your children coal in their Christmas stocking but don't feel like buying coal and want to get a cheaper piece of shit. I guess you would use this for punishment. It's just terrible. It's more boring than Avengers by a wide margin. The voice acting is some of the worst I've ever heard. It's like if Tommy Wiseau was trying to do other accents and falling asleep while recording his lines. There's no emotion behind it. The writing's bad. The story's bad. The gameplay is some of the worst I've seen from a AAA title. Yes, it does work most of the time, but it doesn't mean it's good gameplay. Just because the game doesn't crash every time you shoot a bullet doesn't mean that it's good or functionally sound. It's still really, really boring. Unity tech demos on itch.io have more features than this game does for its gameplay. The world is completely dead. It feels like you're exploring the radioactive wasteland of Chernobyl. It's a barren wasteland of shit to do in the actual open world, and driving through it is mind-numbing and frustrating. It's like you're trying to control a car using an iPad. Tying your shoes is a more fun adventure than the entirety of playing Watch Dogs Legion. If you got an ice cream cone and threw it on the ground, the journey of the ice cream cone to the ground is more thrilling than the entire journey of playing this game's main missions. It's just fucking horrible. I only have one positive memory associated with this game, and it's the time that someone sent me an email claiming that I'm the reason this franchise is dead and will no longer get any more games of the Watch Dogs universe because I told everyone how horrible it was in my moist meter, and that still puts a smile on my face, but that's really the only good thing I can say about this game. And now you're probably asking yourself, what could possibly be worse than Watch Dogs Legion? I thought for sure this was going to be number one on the Moisties this year. But you would be wrong, my friend, because you clearly have forgotten the worst game of this year, and simultaneously the best worst game of this year. Number one, Fast and Furious Crossroads, baby. I'm talking about family. Fast and Furious is the first family game, the first family strand game. It is so fucking incredibly bad in every possible department that I can't even find enough words to describe it. It's quite possibly the most embarrassing game that has come out in the last few years, and it is so unaware of how truly awful it is that it elevates it to like the Room status of video games. It's like a Neil Breen directed video game. Like, I don't even know if you can even call it a video game anymore. It's more just like a virtual family simulator at this point. Everything that could go wrong with a game has gone wrong in this game, but I stand beside my initial statement that this game is so bad that it's good. It is so incredibly bad that it crosses that event horizon of dog shit and becomes like enjoyable shit. It is baffling that this game ever got published or even started development in the first place. I don't know why. The question that I have to ask is, why did this even exist at any point in time? I really can't wrap my head around who played this when going through Q&A testing, if such a thing even existed at this headquarters, and said, yeah, we can probably ship this. You couldn't give this game away for free. If somebody gave you this game, you should take it as a personal attack on your honor. If your mom and dad went through your computer and found thousands upon thousands of hentai photographs and video and furry porn all over the place, but then also saw Fast and Furious Crossroad in your Steam library, that would be the most embarrassing thing they found. They would be more disappointed and ashamed of you for owning this game than all of the other shit in there. The game is just that bad. But again, can it even really be called the game? It's more like a virtual family experience. So for that, I think it's probably one of the best family type games I've ever played. And that's really going to conclude the Moisties for the 2020 video game season. These were the 5 worst games to come out this year. And yeah, that's about it. This holiday season, why not stock the stuffings with something that your man's really gonna want? I'm talking about Manscaped products. I've talked about Manscaped numerous times. When it comes to male grooming, there is no equal. Manscaped is the ultimate Excalibur when it comes to trimming your balls, thanks to the Lawnmower 3.0, which has skin-safe technology, so you're never at risk at hurting yourself when grooming down there in a very sensitive, dangerous area. There's also things such as the Crop Preserver, which is basically just ball deodorant, so it doesn't smell terrible, it's not stinky. And there's also ball toning spray and just pretty much everything you could possibly need to amp up your male grooming game. So if you're interested in trying Manscaped products, go to manscaped.com/moist for 20% off. That's manscaped.com/moist for 20% off and free shipping. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Moisties. Ryan Seacrest wasn't available to host, so I'm here instead. It's me, Charlie, the ultimate greasy gamer, the super supreme specimen of ultimate gaming barbarism. And think about this. A mere 50 years ago, the idea of a gamer didn't even exist. The closest thing you had to gamers were the people in your elementary school that didn't get cholera during the Oregon Trail game. And now look at how far we've come. Today we're looking at the shittiest games of 2019. Kicking us off with a semi-chub, we've got WWE 2K20 taking the 5th spot. Now, this isn't something I'd normally do. A sports game is one of the worst games. I fucking hate sports games. You already know that. I'm not out there fucking limp dick in hand playing FIFA constantly or any sports game really. But WWE 2K20 is a special exception. This game switched studios from previous WWE games, and it shows. It's bad. From top to bottom, the game almost doesn't work without bugs. You can't have a single match go down without some type of catastrophic and jarring glitch. The story mode is one of the most laughable things in all of campaign history. You play as like these two up-and-coming wrestlers that are both just really shit characters on this really bad adventure that's poorly animated. Half the female hair choices come out stiffer than a goddamn uncooked spaghetti noodle. When they're twirling their hair around, it looks like they're twirling around pure blocks of steel. There's no fluidity to it, so it's all real goofy looking, but in the story mode specifically, that really shines because you spend a lot more time looking at these characters and they're moving around a lot, and the story's really juvenile. Like, they get into a little wrestling match at school one time because they were looking at wrestling notes in their notebook, and then someone poured ketchup on a girl. It's dumb. It's a dumb game. Its story mode's super fucking dumb. But the thing that makes it so significantly worse than the other entries is just how unfun it is to play, unresponsive, and just impossible to play without encountering bugs and game-altering glitches. It's a game that clearly was rushed. There's no actual effort behind it. Half of the things here seem to be like placeholders waiting for an actual fucking texture or model to go in with actual animation. It's rough. It's super rough, and it definitely shouldn't have shipped. It should have waited, been cooking in the oven for at least another 5 or 6 months. Number 4, Left Alive, aka Almost Metal Gear Solid, aka please compare us to Metal Gear Solid so we can sell a few copies. Even their box art tries extremely hard to look like Metal Gear Solid, but it's not even close. It fucking sucks. This game tries to do so many things and it's bad at all of them. Its stealth is insulting, boring, poorly implemented, and doesn't really work very well, especially when it's complemented by the weirdest AI of 2019. Sometimes the AI troops are totally fucking asleep. You could stand in front of them, jerk off, smoke a cigarette, hit a fucking gravity bong, and they will not alert. But then 30 seconds later, they can see the goddamn future. And they will come sprinting around across the entire zone because they smelt your fart when you entered, and they will put you down, and you will not expect it. The AI is all over the place. It also has these awful mech sections where it's just you stand around and spray in like a little area, just fucking fire hose them with bullets. It's not fun. The story is garbage and the voice acting is laughable. The voice acting sounds like everyone tried to be Tommy Wiseau if Tommy Wiseau was overdosing on Xanax. The voice acting is just so uninspired, lazy, and bad. I don't even know how you find voice acting this bad in this day and age when everyone wants to do things like this and people are good at it. It's hard. You have to go out of your way to find shitty voice acting like this. But yeah, they've done it. They managed to get this entire package of garbage. The whole thing is just bad. Start to finish. It doesn't even run well. Shit's choppy as shit half the time, and it's not like it's because it's graphically impressive, because it's not. Shit looks dated, like 2006 style visuals. It's bad. Bad game. I don't think many of you have even heard of Left Alive. It's one of those games that went really under the radar for obvious reasons. Even them trying to piggyback off of Metal Gear didn't work because no one gave a shit. So, yeah. It's bad, though. Moving on to number 3, we have Crackdown 3. A game with years and years of hype in the making. I still remember how excited I was for Crackdown 3. I loved the first two. The first one more than the second, but I still liked it. I was so excited for Crackdown 3, especially when they had that tech demo of shit falling down, blowing up, tits flying all over the place with this real-time, cloud-rendered, explosive destruction, real-time physics, titty physics. That wasn't in the preview with the titty physics, but you get the idea. They had this crazy physics going on, and I love Red Faction Guerrilla, which is still so innovative and holds up well, by the way. And I thought Crackdown 3 was going to be on par, if not better than that, with all these like really minute details they paid attention to when they were destroying buildings in their tech demo. I was hype as shit. I think most people were. And then a year goes by and nothing's really come from it. Another year goes by, still nothing's come from it. And then eventually people just thought it was a canceled project, just fucking canned it, flush it down the toilet. But then to everyone's surprise, it actually comes out and everyone wished it didn't. It would have been significantly better if it just remained a myth that never came to fruition, because what ended up being Crackdown 3 is the lamest, most boring, generic, well, I can't even say generic because it's so fucking bad it can't be generic, just uninspired garbage. The whole game looks and plays like a Unity tech demo from an indie studio on Steam when they're trying to squeeze some money out of early access so they haphazardly throw something together. The game's bad. It is super bad, and it feels, looks, and plays unfinished and just not what you'd expect from something with that much hype, that much time in the oven, and in 2019. It's an unforgivably bad experience in game. There is so little to like about Crackdown 3. It's not good, which is why it's number 3. Number 2 goes to Contra Rogue Core. Contra is a franchise and a name that used to just elicit such a masculine response. You know, you say Contra and fucking hairs pop up on your chest. It was a really powerful franchise and really influential for its time. Nowadays, the only response it elicits is fucking projectile vomit or diarrhea. Contra Rogue Core is truly abhorrent. It's a twin-stick shooter, completely redoing the Contra formula, which isn't a sin in and of itself, but doing it as poorly as this game does absolutely is. It's not a fun twin-stick shooter, and it has this overheating thing where Contra was built on running and gunning, just constant fucking bullets, hail of bullets, you know, eating lead and spitting tits. In Contra Rogue Core, you can't do that because everything overheats. So you have to constantly stop shooting and waiting, which is super anti-fun and really goes against like the core design element of Contra in and of itself. It is a bafflingly bad decision. The story is just so poorly written. The lines, the one-liners, the comedy, all of it is so poorly written and seems just so lazy. It really feels like the entire game is rushed to meet a deadline. And it shows that more in its like actual levels, because entire levels are just copy and pasted. You'll play one level and then, you know, 1 hour later you're playing that exact same level with no changes at all. The objectives are always repeated. It's just there's no diversity in the game. It's the same game from the fucking tutorial till the end of the game. Nothing changes. Nothing is ever fun. It is so boring. It is so lazy, and it really feels super unfinished. Porn parodies are more respectable to the source material than Contra Rogue Core is to the Contra name. It's just fucking terrible, and I can't believe that it's a 2019 game because it's a console game, and it looks like a phone game you would have played 5 years ago. It's bad. It's really bad. What is the number 1 shittiest game of the year? We're at the number 1 spot, the cream of the crop, the champion. Who takes home the shittiest game of the year award from the Moisties? I'm sure 100 million gamers all at once knew the answer, and they all pumped their fists in the air and they said, Anthem, because Anthem is the shittiest game of 2019. And it is a pleasure to say that because the beta didn't work, and at the time, Jackson and I were joking around about how bad the beta was, so we made the Anthem is Awful series, and the fucking BioWare fanboys and Anthem enthusiasts, fucking brainwashed zombies, were all saying, it's just a beta, are you guys fucking dumb? The game's gonna be so much better than this beta, obviously. It's just a beta, you don't get it. And then the full game comes out and it's even worse than the beta, and the game dies within like 3 weeks. The developers abandon it within 2 months. You get fucking radio silence, no fixes, the game in a broken state, horrible looting system, horrible systems all across the board, shitty game from top to bottom, nothing is working the way it was supposed to, fans going up in flames. The subreddit, which was once a safe haven for fans, turns into this hate haven. Oh, it was nuts. There was like a fucking war, a video gamer war in the Anthem battlefield. And I have to be honest, it was a pleasure to see that. Because this blind fucking fanboyism, this hail corporate shit where you just digest product because you like product and you never want to hear criticism about product, I think is so detrimental to things getting better. The subreddit at the time of the beta and its early launch outright just deleted things that were negative about the game to foster this idea that the game was perfect, and that is the worst practice possible. You need criticism of something, even things you like. You don't need to just constantly say, product, want more product. I love BioWare, so I have to love everything BioWare. That's not good. That's not how you get better games. That's not how you improve the game you're playing. The game was in a broken state. The end game, not fun, even to a certain extent, non-fucking existent. They had these weird fucking... It's so much to go into, but these weird grinding mechanics that didn't pan out well. So when you did finally reach the end game, it didn't feel rewarding. The starter gun was scaled the same as the best gun in the game at one point. So like literally one of the first things you start with would be doing the same, if not more damage, as something you'd spend 100 hours getting. There was so much wrong with that game, and it stayed wrong for that game. And then they eventually totally outright abandoned it, silenced the community, shunned them. It's a relic of the past, existing only in wet nightmares of those that experienced it. Still, Reddit warriors on the Anthem subreddit trembling, remembering those days in the trenches, fighting the either positive or negative comments depending on whose side you were on. It was nuts. Anthem was a game that totally redefined what it meant to have a shitty launch. Anthem is like the WWE 2K20 of shooting games. It is a big, non-functional, shitty shooter, stinker, bad, just all of the adjectives you could use to describe something abhorrent. Anthem epitomized. It was insufferable. And, well, I can't say that it's overly surprising to most of you because I'm sure you saw Anthem coming. Never before have I seen a AAA game and a studio with as much street cred and as much renown as BioWare have a game this bad, be this poorly received, and then totally just wash their hands of it and delete it. That was crazy. That was a fucking power move and something I'd never seen before. So Anthem, absolutely shittiest game of 2019, earning that prestigious award from the Moisties. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and that's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Today we're going to be taking a look at the worst games of 2018, the shittiest stinkers of the video game industry this year. 2018 years after the death of Christ, these 5 games have spit on his legacy. So I hope you're wearing a condom because we're coming in hot. It's the Moisties, bitch. Number 5, Crisis on the Planet of the Apes VR. I know it's cheating to put VR games on the top 5 worst list because pretty much every VR game is pretty fucking stinky. My HTC Vive is basically just a Beat Saber machine. That's about the only game worth playing VR for. But still, this game takes it to the next level. This game is vomit-inducing. It is nauseating. When I played Crisis on the Planet of the Apes VR, I thought I was going to have to check myself into a hospital. I thought I got like food poisoning or something. I thought someone fucking flooded my room with a neurotoxin. I was getting dizzy, incredibly ill, and on the verge of puking. It was a miserable experience. I couldn't stand more than 30 minutes tops of that game. And it's not like there was a whole lot of fun to be had, even if you couldn't muscle through the nausea. There was just not anything fun there at all. I don't think anyone expected anything great from a movie tie-in VR game. That's a recipe for disaster. It'd be like being surprised that goat urine tastes bad. What were you expecting? You get what you expect and then some with Crisis on the Planet of the Apes because it truly is absolutely disgusting to play. It fucking hurts to play. Moving on to number 4, Radical Heights. Cliff Bleszinski really had his work cut out for him to make an even worse game than Lawbreakers. To make a game that was such a hard fucking flop, a biblical flop, was almost unheard of with Lawbreakers, and yet the madman, the genius, the lunatic, the mad scientist of the gaming industry, the bad boy of video gaming comes back and says, you know what? I can make a bigger flop. And bang, Radical Heights is born right from Mr. Bleszinski's butthole. And man, was it fucking atrocious. A blatant cash grab to really capitalize on the hysteria surrounding the Battle Royale genre. A game that was thrown together in no more than 2 weeks with almost no textures in the game. Half the buildings had no textures. Nothing was functional for the most part. Everything was stock assets, and they had the audacity to implement a microtransaction system before working on anything else. A truly bold move that wasn't rewarded because it led to Cliff Bleszinski having to close down his game studio, which disappointed almost 2 people in the world, I'm sure. But Radical Heights was a game born from his asshole, and it really did smell like shit. There was almost nothing to like about the game. It did nothing unique, it did nothing new, and it did nothing well. A game that I'm sure nobody looks back on and misses. Number 3, Hunt Down the Freeman. A game that is by far Steam's most broken stinker of the year. You couldn't beat the game unless you used the command console and no-clip some shit. And the story was absolutely incomprehensible that brought along a lot of YouTube talent to voice act for it.
and I can't stress enough how fucking dumb the story was. It made J.K. Rowling's retconning of her Harry Potter lore make sense in comparison. It was an extremely ambitious project that delivered on absolutely nothing and devolved into a series of tedious and frustrating levels where you were just going up against a horde of mindlessly broken AI. I gave you absolutely nothing to do other than roll your eyes, cry, and shit your pants. It's a game that was an absolute failure in all possible areas, and a huge embarrassment for a lot of the YouTubers that acted in the game. Hunt Down the Freeman is the video game equivalent of The Room, but without any of the charm and so bad it's fun. This game is just so bad, it's hurtful.
Number 2, Gene Rain. Gene Rain right now holds the record on the Moist Meter for the lowest score ever given out with a 2%, and it absolutely earns every percent of that 2 right there. It is fucking abysmal. Sometimes in a so bad it's good way, but most of the time in a so bad I want to call my mom and sob over the phone way. There is nothing in this game that works. I really don't know how any studio filled with actual human beings could think that this game was ready to ship or was ever even a good idea on paper. I just have a hard time believing actual red-blooded human beings sat down and even made this. I feel like this was just an AI-generated game from an AI in 1980. You know, if you asked a supercomputer in the 80s on a word pad what they thought a video game in 2018 would look and feel like, this would be the result that it would spit out. It is so bafflingly bad. I've already covered thoroughly why this game is as bad as it is in the Moist Meter I made for it, so if you want a more detailed analysis, you can check that out. But for now, to keep it concise, to really just sum up why this game deserves the number 2 spot in a nutshell, it's because it's shit. It's extremely shitty. Moving on to number 1, the worst game of 2018, The Culling 2. A video game that redefined what it meant to be a failure. This game launched and was dead within 19 hours, and it was the follow-up to a pretty successful first game, The Culling. So The Culling 2's collapse was unprecedented. There was no one that could have predicted that this game would flop nearly as hard as it did. It made Lawbreakers look like an overwhelming success. In the game's 19-hour lifespan, I think there was only about 50 total games that were played. It was once again a battle royale that was just capitalizing on that market as quickly as it could, but it didn't work at all because at no point did more than 100 people buy the game. Its max player count was something like 94 that only kept going down and down and down as the minutes went on. In fact, within 19 hours, you couldn't find a game, so for the last 5 hours of its lifespan on Steam, you genuinely couldn't play it. You were just throwing your money away. You might as well have just wiped your asshole with it and flushed it down the toilet instead of buy this game. You would have accomplished the same effect. You got a game you couldn't play because there wasn't players to even play it. And I mean that literally. Sometimes you'll hear that with Overwatch or some other game that's dying where like, oh, there's just not enough players to play. It's not worth even hopping on. But in The Culling 2, you literally could not start a match because there was a minimum number of players required to get one going that it could never ever meet because nobody bought the dog shit. If you were one of the unfortunate 8 or 9 souls that did buy the game while it was on Steam, you've already been refunded for it in full. The game was taken off Steam very, very quickly because it was such an incredible failure. The studio came out and apologized for it, which is nice. They recognized what they did was super scummy and shitty, and I like that they reimbursed the poor consumers that did fall for it and buy it. But man, oh man, The Culling 2 has earned this spot like a motherfucker. Easily the worst game of 2018, and perhaps one of the worst of all time because its launch was so incredibly bad, and you genuinely couldn't play it. There's a lot of bad games out there, but at least they can be played. The Culling 2, the most you could do is just hold your dick around in the purgatory waiting room of the lobby. That was all you could do in the game. It was an incredible one. It definitely earns the top spot. Thank you for tuning in to the first Moisty Awards. These were the top 5 worst games of 2018. Fuck yeah. See ya. Special stinker alert. Special stinker alert. We will not be including Fallout 76 in the top 5 worst games because neither of us played it because we're not fucking idiots who bought the game, but it is absolutely deserving of a special stinker award because the game is absolutely abominable. Everything that has happened with its launch, the way it's been handled, the way Bethesda's handled things, by refunding players 500 in-game currency for a completely broken shit stain they released, is nothing shy of a slap to the face of elite gaming specimen everywhere. The game is completely empty, so many glitches, it's laughable. Even for Bethesda's standards, the bugs are unforgivable, and the way they handle it is just downright evil. They misled consumers with their special edition canvas bags that never really existed. The game hardly works at all, even when it's not riddled with its bugs. It is just a truly miserable experience to watch, to read about, and I'm sure to play. But I will not be playing it. Jackson has not played it, but it is definitely deserving of this special stinker. So Bethesda, take a bow. You have now become one of the most hated video game companies. All of your goodwill has hopefully been burnt to the ground.